And for more on this, we're joined by Filiz Katman, who's president of the Energy Politics and Markets Research Centre at Istanbul Aydin University. Welcome back to the programme, Professor. Now, we've had meetings with international corporations have jumped from 15 to 40 in the last month. What is it about the Istanbul Financial Centre that is specifically appealing to these firms right now?
The plan that was made by Turkish state with regard to finance center located in Istanbul is a very much medium-term and long-term plan, which includes some kind of advantages for the companies, primarily looking for stability and access to the markets, which is provided by primarily Istanbul. That's why the very infrastructure made within Istanbul in this manner is a very critical point that, especially after the crisis in the Gulf, many companies within the Gulf region sees Istanbul as a very critical point that connects Asia and Europe together. That's why the advantages provided within the infrastructure of a finance center in Istanbul, in comparison to other places in the world, is a very advantageous position, especially with regard to instabilities and with regard to risks that Turkey does not have in that manner.
And of course, the 10-year corporate tax exemption is a significant draw. How does this fit into Turkey's broader vision of making the Istanbul Financial Centre a premier global financial hub?
Yeah, tax is a primarily one element, especially within the Trump administration. Tax is used as a leverage to attract new businesses or to limit the imports. That's why Turkey has been using as a kind of good position to attract new investors to Turkey, which in comparison with regard to, for example, United Arab Emirates, which was a center of attraction, Turkey tries to position herself with regard to the advantages, especially the taxes, with the exempt status can be provided, and also lower taxes with regard to corporate tax, which will make the cost of investment for these companies less, that will make them more competitive with regard to their rivals in the sector. That's why Turkey uses it as a leverage to attract more investors in comparison to other places that provide higher taxes in that manner.
And with the central bank and other major institutions already on site, how prepared is the Istanbul Financial Centre to handle a sudden large-scale influx of international financial institutions?
During the planning of the finance center in Istanbul, as I have mentioned earlier, Turkey posits herself as a kind of center of attraction. So that's why the plans are made with regard to medium-term and long-term periods that may inhabit many investors with regard to capacity, with regard to places that are arranged with regard to the external facilities that is on site within Istanbul Finance Center. I personally visited many times, and I have seen that potential with regard to the capacities that can be provided to the investors. In that manner, Turkey's position with regard to stability, Turkey's position, Istanbul's position with regard to infrastructure that has been already placed, I think the medium-term and long-term capacities will be larger, but with regard to short-term period, I think extra measures can be taken in order to tackle the immediate problems that may occur. But in that manner, Turkey has planned as well in the very formation of the plan with regard to finance center in Istanbul.
And beyond the safety aspect, how does moving to Istanbul help the East Asian and Gulf companies diversify their global market reach?
Turkey has very advantageous position with regard to Turkey's relations with the West and Turkey's relations with the East. In that manner, I think we should have two dimensions as well that other countries do not have. The northern and the southern countries, the relations with Black Sea countries are in the north, and the relation with African countries in south. So Turkey has a four-dimensional capacity that any other country in the world does not have. So Turkey, in comparison to other countries, can provide this advantageous position because Turkey has been seen as a center of security, the country who provides security, who ensures security, and that capacity will be provided to the investor countries from the Gulf that currently does not have the capacity that can be provided in the alternative places like Turkey have, especially the Asia Pacific countries, which can be rivalry with Turkey, but Turkey's position with four-dimensional aspect, northern, southern, eastern, and western, very much really good relations that Turkey has, and beyond the reach, like Latin American countries, the Pacific countries, Turkey's ongoing developed relations can provide extra benefits for the Gulf countries with regard to the plans Turkey have been making since 2000s.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Filiz Katman from Istanbul Aydin University, thank you very much as always.